what am I doing to try to uncover gold in people?
Yeah.
I'm looking for breadcrumbs, Adam. You know this. Like, I'm listening, I'm sensing, I'm discerning, and then I'm challenging. And those four for me are really, really important. And there's probably more than four, but listening is such a huge part of this, because a lot of us we're not hearing what somebody's telling us. And when I think about listening in terms of how do I find the gold in people, I'm looking for the things that they say that other people may not be hearing.
What's up, crew? It's Adam. You're listening to The Conversation. Today is episode 281, and we have one of my all-time favorite human beings on The Conversation today. We are continuing on in our New Year's series. So far, you have heard from John Gordon on how to stay positive in 2025. We've talked with Jen Johnson from Bethel Worship, unbelievable, on how to grow spiritually in this new year. On today's episode, though, outside the state of South Dakota, literally no one has impacted my life more than today's guest. Friend, if you are a leader, you're not going to want to miss this episode. Even more than that, today's guest is someone, if at all possible, you need to try and meet, you need to reach out to, you need to buy coffee for. Today, wherever you are, I'm so glad you're tuning in. Before we go any further, I need to give a huge shout out to our partners. I am so grateful and honored to carry the name of these partners forward, because I know the type of organizations they are. Our first partner is Vernity Mitsubishi. Vernity is a growing employee-owned company that strives to deliver dreams and transform lives, and their goal is excellence in everything that they do. Now, I could say so much about Vernity. I've purchased my last 3 vehicles from them. I will look no place else. Service-wise, they are phenomenal. Honestly, one of my favorite things that they do is the impact they have. When you purchase through Vernity, you're not just getting an amazing automobile, you're also making a difference in our world. Vernity, if I had one word to sum them up, I would use the word generous. They are incredibly, incredibly generous. And so whether you're looking for a brand new Outlander like I drive, whether you're looking for an Acura, a Ford, a Chevy, a GMC, whether you're looking for a snowmobile, they got them. Whether you're looking for an ATV, they got it. Whether you're looking for a tractor or a boat, they literally have any type of vehicle you need. And anywhere you live, they will ship it to you. Go visit Vernity.com. Our second partner is First Interstate Bank. And friends, I've been doing my banking through First Interstate since 2007, which has got to be like 16, 17 years. Their mission is to help people and their money work better together. They have over 300 locations throughout 14 different states, from Arizona to Colorado, from Washington State to the great state of South Dakota. For more information and to find a location near you, visit firstinterstatebank.com. Again, a bank that I've known for so long. Okay, so today, we are wrapping up this New Year's series with, again, one of my favorite human beings on the planet, Brad Lomenick. Hello, Brad Lomenick. I met Brad 15 or so years ago when I first read his book, The Catalyst Leader. And when I read his book and when I met him, I had no idea of how this one human being would change my life. Brad is a leadership consultant. He's a speaker. He's an author. More than anything else, Brad is a connector. And I don't say this lightly. Brad knows everyone, which is great. Here's the cool part. Brad wants you to know everyone as well. He's not just a person who knows everybody. He's like, no, these two people need to meet each other. And those two people need to meet each other. And I have been on the receiving end of that so many times. In today's conversation, though, I picked Brad's brain on leadership and how we can be the best leader possible in 2025. We talk about the importance of leaning into spiritual moments as leaders. We also talk about how to identify the giftings of the people around us and how to help foster those giftings. You are not going to want to miss this conversation. On that note, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Brad, we always hear a person's highlight reel. Are you willing to share a current unpretty part of your life? Whether it's stress, grief, jadedness, it can be anything. Current unpretty part.
Current unpretty part. Gosh. Well, you know that, the connector I am, but the times that, you start to be insecure and even question, are you really good at this? Is what you're doing really mattering? It's always sort of on the back end of doing an event or a gathering or bringing a bunch of leaders together, which is when you should celebrate the most. But a lot of us, I think many of us, we get done with something that feels like a win, and then we live in this place of insecurity and bizarre sort of almost, again, close to depression in some ways, of, does this really matter? Does anybody care? Did I really make a difference? You feel it every Sunday night or Monday morning,
Hello.
right? I mean,
Jeez.
so that's what I'm trying to navigate, and just, I guess, just being aware of it is a step, but also understanding that, like Grant Skeldon would say, when he's done with Next Gen Summit or any event he puts on, he always makes sure he's around people.
Whoa.
Intentionally, like for the next several days. And he said it's because he gets into such a place of again, insecurity. You end up doing dumb stuff many times on the backside of a win. And again, I've heard professional athletes talk about they win the Super Bowl, and then they look around and go, "Is this it?" Like, and so it's the same with when do all the injuries happen? If you're a climber, where they happen on the way down from the peak. People die on the way down from Mount Everest. Very few die on the way up, but they end up dying on the way down from Mount Everest because they relax. So there's just a lot of things in that I think are really healthy for leaders to think about.
Man, that's honestly, even after knowing you for a year, that shocks me to hear that from you, that you struggle with that you wrestle with that. Specifically,
Well,
like, yeah.
The old days of Catalyst, man, I would, I didn't even know, I knew it, but the 2 or 3 days afterwards, after a big event, were always some of the hardest. And I think that's when we get tempted. I think that's when we allow ourselves to go to places for many reasons. And I don't know. There probably is some research on this of when do we make the bad decisions, or when do we allow ourselves to make bad decisions? And I would be interested to know if it's many times on the back end of something that feels like success.
No, that's wild. Well, just to speak directly to you, I have this on my notes. Before we go do anything more, I need to tell you, outside the state, and I've told you in person, outside the state of South Dakota, no one has impacted my life more than you. I mean,
thank you.
There's not even I have some amazing professors from my seminary days in Kentucky, friends across the country. Nobody has impacted. I got specific, Brad. You've impacted my life as a friend, specifically my relationship with Jesus. You just have, we'll get to it in a little bit, but there's been specific things that have really impacted my walk with Jesus. I actually had a moment last week that I did something that I felt like you taught me. So you've hit my relationship with Jesus, the connections and relationships I have. Nobody. I don't even think inside the state of South Dakota has impacted my life more than when it comes to connections and relationships. The opportunities, I wrote this down. The opportunities you've given me have been insane, like just different. Hey, here you go, buddy. Walk through that door. Go talk to this person. And then I wrote down, and you haven't just done this for me. I have to be your top fan, by the way, of your podcast. I don't know if Spotify's year-end thing showed my face, but me and your mother, it's me and your mother that whatever. But your Mark Batterson's first book deal, I'm like, are you kidding me?
I know, dude. I didn't even remember that. By the way.
I've read Mark Batterson's books because of Brad Lomenick. What the heck? Okay, so that I needed to share all that. So this is my New Year's series. The guests that I have, my interview with John Gordon's fantastic. Jason Van Ruler, that was awesome. Jen Johnson. So we got the stellar lineup on how to have the best 2025 possible. So
Well, you got a bunch of all stars there and a knucklehead
no.
right here. So
So I want to talk specifically about gifting and leadership with you, Brad. You have the gift of seeing things in people, gifts and talents, and also seeing opportunities in people that they can't always see in themselves. You've done this for me so many times. So in this year, 2025, if a person can't talk directly to you, advice on how a person can seek this out inside themselves, like
yeah,
giftings, strengths, things that I like. You always say, get done with the ah shucks. Like leave the ah shucks.
yes,
I kind of like blow that off. But like, how does a person discover those things in themselves?
yeah. Good question. And it's self-awareness. I mean, that is the foundational pieces, as you well know, of any good leader is you're self-aware. And this all goes back to self-awareness and humility is having an accurate portrait of yourself. It's accurately measuring yourself in regards to the way God's wired you, the way you've been put together. So it's an accurate picture. And so many of us are walking around with inaccurate pictures because of something somebody said to us or something that our parents put into us that they didn't mean to. So that's all the foundation of this question. And so you've got to get self-awareness as your foundation, and that comes from um, being incredibly intentional about understanding the way you're wired. And this comes from all the personality tests you can take them all. Not one of them's the best. They're all really helpful because they're all data points for you. um, Find people who know you well and ask them the question of, hey, what is it about me that I'm not even aware of?
It's
And
good.
this goes back to even some of the things in your childhood. Look to your childhood to find breadcrumbs of wiring that is true about you because there was no pressure on you. There was no monetary, like assumptions or presuppositions. But all that goes into the big soup that I would say of now you're starting to get clarity, and clarity then will give you the ability to start to move the direction you should be moving.
Yeah.
And John Acuff says this, like his whole story of when did he realize he was supposed to do what he's doing? Well, it was probably later than everybody would have told him because he stuck around longer because of the whole quitter mindset.
Yep.
And what he's saying in that situation is, don't quit too soon. I mean,
Yep.
be very intentional about it. Have some things you're doing, but you also don't want to make a massive adjustment based off of one conversation or based off of, well, I just feel like, that there's something in me, whether it's you feel like that God's telling you or that you're just tired of your boss. But those can sometimes be bad decisions to make. So you're pursuing some of these things with clarity as your focus, but also like a willingness to probably be more patient than you should.
Yeah.
And then let me just end with this, and you can do a follow up, or we can keep talking about it. But to me, the four quadrants is gifts, which is strengths for the most part, things you're really good at. Passion, the things that wake you up, that make you come alive, that you would do for free, right? Those are quadrant one, quadrant two, quadrant three, and four. Quadrant three is what we would say as followers of Jesus, like your God story or the season of life you're in, based on
Yeah.
what you feel like God is saying to you, circumstances, all of that. And then the fourth is economic engine. And so economic engine that goes back to like Jim Collins and Good to Great. A lot of people would say you have to find something that allows for you potentially, if we're talking about vocation, that gives you the ability to create revenue,
Yeah.
right? Because otherwise, I mean, again, if we're talking about like your job, that's a big part of the equation. Um, so if you think about gifts, passions, God's story, and economic engine, those are four really good quadrants to then start to create a framework that you can say, well, I feel like I'm hitting on several of my gifts.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm really that passionate about it. I think it's God's story, and the economic engine, I guess, is okay. Where a lot of business people, by the way, they end up in the place where they've got their economic engine is humming, they're making bank, right? But when you really get down to the question of, well, are you good at it? Yeah, I think I'm pretty good at it. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be making the kind of money I am. But do you really love it? Uh, Probably not. And is it really God's story on your life for this season? I don't know, right? So depending on context, man,
Yeah.
everybody has a different makeup to their quadrants based on the season they're in, and that's okay.
That's so good. I have to say, I don't think I've ever thought of the word self awareness as a positive. It's always been trying to identify my negatives. Does it make like
Yeah,
that? That's kind of honestly, when you were talking, I'm like, I've probably heard it, but I've never, that is always, when I hear self aware, what am I bad at or what am
right. What are
I,
my blind spots?
yeah, like where am I an alligator that I don't even know I'm a porcupine for other people. I've never thought about it as a sense of like, no, what are those actual giftings you have? And you said that about business leaders. The thing I've brought to you is I feel like I've got the other quadrants, but money, specifically if you're in ministry, is like, oh, that's wrong to talk about.
Right. Can't even talk about it. Can't even
Yeah.
put it in the quadrant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're all of a sudden, it's sinful to even look at it. Between you and Acuff, the two of you have challenged me with that. Okay, so so that's kind of like how I can kind of discover for me personally. How do you help do that in other people? Is there two or three things
Yes.
about, because that's one of your superpowers.
Well,
You see it and you call it out in people, even if they don't even. Yeah, you just do that really well. What do you look for?
I would say, okay, so one piece of this, the question of how does everybody do this for others? I would say a lot of it is wisdom. And I'm not saying that I am full of wisdom, but I do pray for it. I do seek it. I do try to live it out. I do try to maximize wisdom.
Yeah.
And wisdom is built on a lot of things, but it's the thing that I think so many leaders should be really, really, really purposeful in praying for and actually seeking out, both in terms of how they give it, but also how they receive it. And so the question to your question though of what am I doing to try to uncover gold in people?
Yeah.
I'm looking for breadcrumbs, Adam. You know this. Like I'm I'm listening, I'm sensing, I'm discerning, and then I'm challenging. And those four for me are really, really important. And there's probably more than four. But listening is such a huge part of this because a lot of us we're not hearing what somebody's telling us. And when I think about listening in terms of how do I find the gold in people, I'm looking for the things that they say that other people may not be hearing. Right. And this is what people who have the gift of discernment, the spiritual gift of what you might call words of knowledge,
Yeah.
the spiritual gift of wisdom, truly, and being able to, like, you if you say something about your friends and you say, man, it just feels like they already know the answer before I even tell them, or it seems like they already have read my mail. Like, we've been around Ken Costa, you
Yeah.
and I both, many times. Ken can read your mail so quickly. And what I've learned from being around Ken, who's a very wise person, right, is he's hearing things that other people don't hear.
Ugh.
He's sensing things that other people don't sense in you. And that comes back to body language. It comes back to the way you're telling me something. It's a lot of this is empathy. It's emotional intelligence. It's stacking patterns upon each other. And that's a gift for me. Like, I'm a pattern stacker, meaning I know when somebody is full of crap
You
for the most
do.
part,
You do.
right?
Yes.
Or I know when somebody's struggling. I know, and that's just me being really, really sensitive and trying to be intentional about understanding what's happening in that person. Now, again, the gifts I'm looking for, going back to, well, how do I unpack and uncover gifts in people? Well, we have to do some due diligence.
Yeah.
And so what I'm going to start asking people and looking for is, well, what are the things you do naturally without anybody having to tell you, or what have I seen in you, right? And like I'm not necessarily a prophetic. I can be prophetic, but the idea of being wise for me many times is based on that I've been around somebody enough or I've done enough due diligence to sort of know what I think the direction they should go, or what I think they might really have a dream in their heart
Yeah.
without and with me doing enough research, I guess is the way to say it. Compared to I'm just walking up to somebody random being like, "Hey, I really
Yeah.
sense in you that you're supposed to quit your job and move to Boise and start a new like bike repair shop." I mean, there are people who do that. Um, that's not necessarily me,
Yeah.
but I would say that if I had some homework and some due diligence and I had enough time to really discern what's going on in their life. So that's a good question. Nobody's ever asked me that. I don't think of, well, how do I actually do it? How do I actually uncover the gold in people? But again, listening, sensing, um, discerning, and then challenging.
Yeah.
I think those are four good verbs to think about.
Were you good? So we got to know each other on the tail end of your Catalyst days. Was that something you were good then at listening and discerning, or were you too driven to whatever to sense it at that time?
I think I've had it for a long. I think I've had it for all my life. It's definitely been dialed in
Yeah.
more recently, and I'm probably a bit more intentional about it than I've ever been. But I, I think again, a lot of this goes back to who who are the people that you. It doesn't take you long before they start to encourage you,
Yeah.
and that goes. I think a lot of that is built on a. It's built on a foundation in somebody of discernment and wisdom and encouragement. Like they just
Yep.
naturally, you get around them and you automatically get better.
Yep.
Um, and I also watched in John Maxwell. Like I've seen it. I've seen it modeled in other leaders too. And that's a big part of this is if you don't know how to do it, get around people who know how to do it
Yeah.
and watch them do it, and then practice it, and then let them like coach you on it. This is 101 of how do we pass on things that we're good at to other people. Well, we got to let them see us doing it, and then be able to watch and learn.
So good. So I'm skipping ahead questions, and I to anybody listening who's like, okay, well, enough spiritual whatever. No, like this, I feel like this is so money though. So, and it's close to what we were talking about, but different. So one of the things that you've taught me is to lean into moments spiritually. And for anybody who doesn't know Brad's not this charismatic person when you meet him as far as like spirituality wise. Like that's not what you lead with. And so for me, it strikes me because it almost feels like maybe the opposite of your natural wiring. And I could be totally wrong on that. Like kind of those awkward moments that you just decide to lead into. But
Yeah.
but why I'm sharing this for any leader, and here's what the gold is. There are the moments that I've been around you that I'll never forget, Brad. Like those are the moments. And it's again, I'm just like, oh my gosh. So maybe A, is that natural for you to lean into those moments? And B, how can I begin to do that if I'm, leading a team at a bank or leading a football team and it's a non-Christian high school? Like, is there any way what does that look like? Because that's something you do so well.
Well, I think it's the thank you, by the way. And I want to be better at it. I always want to keep getting better at that. A lot of that again is wisdom. It is reading the room. It's understanding what's happening in the moment. And I don't just do it because there's a planning center spot
Yeah.
in the program to go, oh, like I think it's time to like make something weird or to challenge somebody, right? Like, so
And
if you're if
really, really quick, just for anybody listening, like I've been in the room with Brad, and it's not pastors; it's like high level CEOs, like
Yeah.
incredibly talented artists, athletes, world known athletes. I mean, and you'll do this there, so it's not like again in a church with a group of pastors. So keep going, like keep sharing that.
and so and I don't think this is a spiritual let me say it this way. It is a spiritual thing. but it's a human thing.
Ugh.
Humans they want to be transformed. They actually want to have a memory moment. They want to find places and spaces and people and environments and moments that shape them. We're all searching for that.
Yeah.
And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you've been following Jesus for 50 years or you're furthest away and you're not even in the spiritual journey conversation. Everybody is starving for moments that transform them, for memory moments, like mile markers on your journey. And it's what you said, Adam. It's like you've been around in those environments, and those are the times that are the most powerful.
Oh,
They're the most transforming. They're the most revealing. They're the most challenging. And the same is true for me. Like if I'm a recipient of those kinds of moments, the same is true for me. So I feel like my job, or part of my job, and part of all of our jobs as leaders, is to create more of those. And it does. What you can't do is you can't just say, well, again, from a formulaic perspective, I'm going to do that, you know, every other week in our
yeah.
staff meeting, right? That doesn't work.
No.
Now you can say I want to do it on in a regular fashion, but the idea that now I've got to read the room, I've got to understand what's going on, and people are giving us signals all the time. We just many times don't follow up on them. So again, take your example of a CEO, and I've talked to several CEOs who, now they feel like part of their responsibility in their role is that they want to go 3 layers deeper with some of their employees than they've ever gone.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to get weird. It's just, hey, tell me more about your story. Help me understand how you're wired. What are some things in your childhood that stand out as great memories? And what are some things that stand out as times that you wish wouldn't have happened? What are you dreaming about in this season of your life? What keeps you up at night?
It's good.
All I'm doing in that situation is I'm going deeper than I normally would. And everybody thinks, oh, Brad, but people don't want to go deeper. No, they actually do want to go deeper.
Yes.
Right? You know this, like even as a pastor, without full permission to engage, you're still gonna find people who look at you and go, oh, wow, here's somebody who I automatically assume wants to go deep with me.
Yep.
So this is a human thing. And I think again, we have to be sensitive. We have to be discerning. We have to read the room. This is emotional intelligence. It's spiritual intelligence. It's social intelligence. In fact, somebody should write the book. Maybe I will, on spiritual intelligence, right? SQ,
No joke.
not just EQ or IQ, SQ. Maybe somebody has, I don't know.
That's good. That's good. Okay. Okay. That book should be written by you. Okay. You can take this question anywhere you want to. In 2025, if I want to be a better leader, practical things, maybe 2 or 3 things that you're like, I just want to lead better for myself. I want to lead better, and I want to lead better for the sake of others. 2 or 3 things that you're just like, think about this.
Yeah. Well, I think that one, what we've been talking about, is really important.
Yeah.
How are you developing your social and spiritual and emotional intelligence at a deeper level? Understanding, how to read the room, understanding empathy. I think empathy is really, really important right now. In an age where all of your 20 somethings on your team, they know more than you do. So what's the distinguishing factor? Well, it's wisdom and empathy. If you care for your people and you actually have wisdom and discernment, that's a game changer. I would say this one isn't just only 2025, but it's becoming more and more true that we have to become way more coaches than we are managers. And the idea that I've got my arm around this 27-year-old on my team, and I'm with them on the journey, and I'm helping them discern perhaps the next season.
Yeah.
Right? That might not be on our team. This is the new role of a leader because of free agency, and it's because of living in an environment that's project generation, right? So we have to we have to continue to think, I'm a coach. I'm as much a counselor as I am a boss.
But
And that's a
yeah,
shift.
distinguish the difference between a coach and manager. Like, is there just if there's yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, a coach is much more for me, should be. They're holding me accountable. They're helping me get better, but they're also looking at me and preparing me for the next season. Right. A manager looks at me and says, I'm going to hold you accountable, but I'm also, if I'm honest, my job is to basically either keep you here or get you fired. Right. But a coach is thinking about my future. If you're a great high school coach, you're creating not just a great sophomore fullback, you're actually creating hopefully a great college fullback, but you're also creating a great leader and human and father and son and husband, right? So that's a coach. A manager is thinking much more about, how do I not get in trouble? How do we make sure the system here we're standard operating procedure, right? That's and leader, I would say leader and coach are very similar.
Yeah.
But again, the coach they put their arm around me, and they say, let's talk about how we create the best path for you. Again, even if it means you won't necessarily be on our team, I hope you stay.
Yeah.
But that's a different mindset than it's ever been.
That's very different. I feel like it would make a person want to stay even more.
It's counterintuitive
When it's genuine, when it's
Yes.
genuine, like, I feel like it'd be like, why would I leave this place? Like, which is.
Yes, exactly. And I think the goal in that situation is, if somebody does leave, they're so distraught about leaving.
Yeah.
Right? Even though they know that the next step is the right next step for them, they think, but they're just like, oh my gosh, I want to stay here forever. Compared to a lot of organizations, a lot of people on teams and organizations right now, they're looking for any possible exit ramp. Any possible exit ramp. Like, this is why so many of us who lead people, we're looking at our team going, we had one bad conversation and now you quit. Well, whose fault is that? And again, I'm not saying that we don't have a lot of leaders on the team who need to toughen up, but many times that's our fault, because they were just looking for one exit ramp. They were looking for one excuse, right? Transfer portal, college athletes. Again, like every college coach is trying to figure out, these kids today, I coach them hard for one practice and then they quit. No, maybe you've created a culture that they don't want to be in. So now they're just looking for any exit ramp, any excuse to be able to say, well, I'm out.
Brad, is there, as we're stepping into this new year, and this can be just anything, even over the last 6 months, is there anything you're specifically doing for you personally to continue growing as a leader, spiritually, physically, just as a person as a whole? Is there anything that you're like, these are some things that I'm working on myself?
Physically, man, I'm a walk and talk guy. You know that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sitting right now because I have to like look in the camera, but I was just on 2 Zoom calls earlier today, and I'm walking on video. So habit stack's crucial.
And why the physical? Why does that matter?
Oh my gosh, it's the big rock that has to go in first for me anyway. Or at least I think for most leaders it is. I think a lot of the habits, the discipline of life are built on one keystone habit. Charles Duhigg and many others, James Clear, like all these guys have they've done the research on this. So for me, like if I'm trying to live a life of health, hopefully, then I want to be somebody who's moving, and it's walking and running. And so I've got to do everything in my power then to make sure that I'm doing that. And the way I get it done is I habit stack it.
That's good.
Right. And what happens on a lot of these calls, especially video calls where I'm walking and it's weird and it's awkward and they're like, bro, the wind's blowing. I'm like, okay, so, and then what happens is everybody else on the call will say, well, can I go walk? I'm like, of course you can. And now we got a whole walking and talking, Zoom call. So, and the other thing is I do this at, gatherings that you and I are part of, is walking and talking with somebody. It creates a different kind of conversation.
Yeah.
Going back to how do you find gold in people?
Yeah.
Take them on a walk, man. Take them on a walk. It's way easier for somebody to start to unpack things when you're shoulder to shoulder, especially for men, compared to eye to eye.
That's good. Anything else, like as far as like what you're doing to have the best potential year ahead, like just for you personally, growth wise? Is there anything else that you're doing?
Well, I'm definitely like always trying to figure out what are the circles and the spaces and the networks and the gatherings and the leaders. If you could see my list, Adam, of the people that I want to meet. and I know a lot of people because I've been doing this a long time, but the list of people that I have on my list that I want to meet and I want to get in the room with and I want to like be around and learn from. So and I won't share who it is because that's weird, but again, like I'm trying to find the next room that I don't have the key to.
It's good.
That everybody would look at me and go, who's this clown? Who let him in? And so what happens in that situation is I have to start over on how do I build influence? Because they look at me and like, so we don't even know who you are. We're like the Christian circles. I got all the keys to those rooms, buddy. Right. And it's great. But what are the rooms that nobody would let you into? And when I'm saying rooms, everybody, leaders, I'm using that as both figuratively and literally.
Yep.
What are the circles? What are the networks? What are the places? The master classes. What are the gatherings? What are the private invite only? So, and not because again I'm trying to like prove that I belong. What I'm trying to do is figure out ways that I can be stretched. And if I'm not looking for places where I'm going to be stretched, and I have to walk in and figure out, gosh, how do I actually gain influence in this room with 100 people who seem like they all know each other and I don't know any of them.
Yeah.
I want that challenge. I need that challenge.
Friends, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. I want to encourage you, actually go back, re-listen to it. Anytime I'm around Brad, there's things that he'll say that I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. And then I'll start thinking about it. I'm like, no, that's actually gold. And that is Brad. If you're not listening to his podcast, that is the number one podcast I listens to. It's the H3 Leadership Podcast with Brad Lomenick. Please go subscribe to that podcast. Brad, I love you so much. I can't thank you enough for the impact you've made in my life. So I need to thank Brad. I need to thank our partners today, First Interstate Bank and Vernite Motor Cars. If you live anywhere near First Interstate Bank, do your banking through them. If you're looking for a vehicle, look no further, vernite.com. Lastly, thanks to all of you who listen in. I do these episodes for all of you, the listeners. God bless.